I'm excited to bring in acting special agent in charge, Keith Krolczyk. Congratulations on the promotion, somewhat.
Thank you. Good to see you, Ronnie. Yeah, it's just temporary right now. Our former SAC, James Deere, is acting Deputy Assistant Director in headquarters right now until further notice. So I'll be filling in here as acting SAC until the time either comes back or they announce a new position.
Yeah, you got this down, though. They're lucky to have you sitting in the chair. So with that, for people, Keith, I know that you've been with ATF for so many years, so I think sometimes when you're a part of the agency, you don't really kind of grasp that the general public doesn't understand the core mission of ATF. Share the mission with us.
Well, ATF, as you know, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, the E is silent. We're housed in the Department of Justice among our other partner agencies, the FBI, the DEA, U.S. Marshals. But ATF's mission is a little more unique as we are exclusively tied to violent gun crime. We are the only federal agency that's exclusively our core mission is to investigate gun crime. But, those are prohibited from possessing firearms and those firearms that are prohibited from being in the public. We also regulate the firearms industry. We investigate and enforce federal explosives and arson laws. So, we work very closely with our state and local partners. We work very close here in Detroit with the Detroit Police Department, Michigan State Police, Wayne State Police Department. And together, we focus again on those shooters on the street, those trigger pullers that are driving the violence. And I think, I heard you mention that you had the former U.S. Attorney on before. I think if you talk to the U.S. Attorney's Office, they'll tell you that the majority of the federal cases that are brought here against violent criminals in Detroit, in the Eastern District and the Western District of Michigan, they're going to come from ATF.
And that really is amazing when you think about how few agents ATF actually has on the ground. So with that, Keith, can you tell us a little bit more? How important is it to have those relationships with the other law enforcement agencies?
It's funny you talk about the size of our agency. We are one of the smallest, if not the smallest, of the federal enforcement agencies. But we seem to get a lot more done with what we have. We hire quality people from various backgrounds. I'd like to compare ourselves to the Marine Corps. We get really a lot done with few people. And I can say that because I was, former Air Force. But I'll tell you, we leverage our partnerships with our local agencies. We work solely crime gun intelligence. We focus on, firearms tracing, which is tracing firearms back to the original purchasers. In order to combat firearms trafficking. We work closely with the state and local agencies on our NIBIN program, the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network. And that's basically us collecting firearms and firearm casings that are left at crime scenes and tracing those firearms and those casings back to the purchasers and tracing them back to the people that used them in crimes.
So with that, though, and I'm sorry because I keep calling you Keith because that's how I knew you working with him, but I'm going to say acting special agent. I'm just going to call you SAC Krolczyk because it sounds good. So, I'm going to throw it out in the universe for you. So with that, too, because we see, especially now in the headlines in Detroit, gun violence is off the hook right now. I mean, there was just, 6 or 7 shot over the weekend. It seems like last weekend there was another one of those. So can you talk more about the challenges when it comes to you and the agency trying to track down the trigger pullers?
Yeah, the gun violence in Detroit is definitely on the rise, but it's very similar in other cities across the country. New York is off the hook, Chicago is off the hook. A lot of the major cities, crime is up. And I think a lot of these trigger pullers and these people that are driving violent crime, they kind of feel immune to the police right now. They're very emboldened. They have been getting away with this for a long time. And we're not going to let it happen. We have not stopped working, during this pandemic. our agents have been working still full-time, and we're working full-time with the United States Attorney's Office, and some of our cases also go to the state prosecutor's office. We have not stopped. We had several large operations last year under the former administration. We had Operation Relentless Pursuit. We had Operation Legend, and we just kicked off another summer violent crime reduction program here in the city. And so we're still working very hard to do what we do best, and that's going after those trigger pullers, going after the the shooters and the gang members that are driving that violence. And again, I'd mentioned before, we can't do this alone. We partner with our other federal agencies. We partner with the state and locals. We have a very strong partnership with the Detroit Police Department. We have police officers that are cross-sworn as federal task force officers here in Detroit. I lost my screen here.
Do we have Keith back?
Appears we do. Keith, can you hear us?
I can, thank you.
Don't worry, we have technical glitches pretty much every day. It's the world that we live in now.
I'd like to say too that the federal government has the best internet service here, but I don't know if we do.
I've been in your building. No, it does not. So with that, acting special agent in charge, Keith Krolczyk, with us again for the ATF's Detroit Field Division. And I know that we were talking about some of the summer initiative that was underway right now to help combat the violent crime in the city of Detroit. But if I can touch on just for a moment, I know you can't talk about ongoing cases, but recently in June, the announcement came through the U.S. Attorney's Office about the 40 members of the violent gang, the Almighty Vice Lords, and it was a long-term investigation, and ATF, it was your case. What does it take to put one of those cases together?
That was a great investigation for us, and we probably started that investigation when you were still here. It culminated over about 3 years. That involved, I probably shouldn't talk about some of the techniques. It involved, very advanced electronic surveillance techniques. We had 43 people indicted in that case, and all of them were arrested without incident. So, it takes a long time to put a case like that together. We had, one of our best, group supervisors, our best, case agents, and a lot of our outstanding agents, the men and women of ATF here in Detroit, working on that. It takes a lot. Many of our investigations are more quick hit. We like to call them like, we go out, we might, arrest someone and charge them with, 1 or 2 counts of a federal violation. But this investigation involved complex RICO charges, and, which is racketeering, organized crime, conspiracy type cases. And they take a long time to put together. And frankly, we probably could have arrested a lot more in that case, but you have to pick and choose your best charges to go forward. And I think 43, for the size of the agency we have here in Detroit, I think that was a pretty good number for us.
And with that, can you, you had mentioned before about some cases that go state versus some that go federal. What goes into that decision making?
Well, we shoot for the best bang for our buck, right? The federal judicial system is a little stronger. Our sentencing guidelines are a lot higher. We try to pick the best cases, or at least our investigations that go forward and get prosecuted by the federal government through our United States Attorney's Office. But sometimes they don't meet that threshold. Maybe we have someone with that not that large of a criminal history or no criminal history at all, first or second time offender. And in those cases are better prosecuted in state court with the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office or one of the other county prosecutor offices.
So with that, can I also ask, because some people will sit back and they'll say, but violent gun crime is still happening. Are you having an impact?
It is still happening, and crime is up, from, the year before last. I've heard a lot of different, theories on it, whether COVID was a driving factor, whether, reduced numbers in law enforcement is a driving factor. But, I do believe we're having an impact. Like I mentioned before, we had, several violent crime initiatives last year. We continued with, the same type of initiatives this year, where we partner again with our federal, state, and local partners. We are seeing a difference. When we take down a large organization like the Vice Lord Nation, with 43 indictments and arrests, it makes a huge impact in the community, because I truly believe it's a small number of people driving the largest amount of violence. And so, where we can have an impact like that, it's just tremendous.
And with that, we should note that when people are convicted of federal crimes, the time is much harder. So they're not going to be back out on the street in 6 months, continuing to commit more crimes. And so the neighborhood feels safer.
Absolutely. If someone's convicted and sent to federal prison, and again, that could be anywhere in the country. That's not here in the state of Michigan. And we remove those people from the streets. It's not just, a slap on the wrist where you're on probation, you're back out on the street the next day. You're going to do some significant time federally.
Acting Special Agent in Charge for ATF's Detroit Field Division, Keith Krolczyk, with us here on the MegaCast. And Keith, just a few more minutes, but I do want to talk a little bit more about your IOIs, but also the fire investigations, because we do know that ATF has been instrumental in helping with so many of the fire investigations, not just here in Detroit, but also Flint and in the Grand Rapids area as well. So tell us more about the fire investigators within ATF.
So yes, ATF, we have certified fire investigators, and we have specific cause and origin specialists. They're agents that go through the regular academy. They're on working at their field office for a number of years, and they gain extra experience, and we give them extra training in the field of arson, specifically in how to investigate suspicious fires. How to do those cause and origin investigations, with, again, partnering with, our other state and local partners, in order to determine when a fire occurs, especially if there's, some kind of violent crime attached to it, was this accidental or was it intentional? And we're, again, we are the only federal agencies that specializes in that type of investigation.
And so for all of the media people out there listening, notice how he said the cause and the origin. Everyone likes to say the origin and the cause. Well, no. ATF took me to school on that one, because you have to find the origin before you can find the cause. And I will say, the special agent out of the Detroit Field Division, of course, Stassi was he was my go-to guy. Like, he would always let me take pictures of him for our social media. But I will say, he's so well respected throughout Metro Detroit and beyond the state of Michigan for his expertise. And we're so lucky to have him here in the state of Michigan. But we also need to give a quick shout out to the IOIs, because the civilian side of the house, I think, kind of gets ignored within ATF, and especially to the public. But they're just as valuable as all the members of the team there. So can you tell us more about IOIs, meaning the industry operator investigators, right? IOIs.
Yes, industry operations investigators. ATF, again, we're responsible for regulating the firearms and explosive industries, and we do that through our industry operations side of the house. They go out and they do inspections, they do audits of firearms licensees, gun dealers, explosive dealers, and explosive magazines. It's a whole nother side of the house of ATF that a lot of people don't know outside of that industry that we do, and it is very vital. A lot of 99.9% of the firearms and explosive dealers out there are up and up, and they're straightforward, and there's no issues. But when we do these inspections, sometimes we find some irregular, some bad stuff going on, either with the dealer, which is very small percentage, or with other people that are, straw purchasing firearms or explosives for other people. And in those cases, we open a criminal investigation and we proceed as we should.
And what's a straw purchase again?
So a straw purchase is when someone who's not prohibited can go into a firearms or an explosives dealer and purchase, a firearm, and when they're filling out the form, they basically say the firearm is for themselves, but it's not. It's for someone else. So they're purchasing a firearm for, another person who may or may not be prohibited individual who can't buy a gun for themselves. So we call that a straw purchase, and it is against federal law, and we do track down and enforce that, and we prosecute those people that are doing that.
So we've been taking up too much of your time, but quickly before I go, so many other law enforcement agencies are hiring like crazy right now. Is ATF still hiring?
We are. We are recruiting pretty much, openly right now, nonstop. If people are interested in a career with ATF, especially here in the Detroit Field Division, you can email, your resume or your interest to recruit Detroit at atf.gov, G-O-V. As you know, from being here for a long time, you were in charge of that program, as I recall. And we're always actively, looking for good men and women to come on board with us.
And we should note, it's not a quick process and it's not an easy process to get through, but it's an important process to be able to go through all the steps to make sure you're getting the best of the best.
Yeah, absolutely. We interview folks. We put them through an extensive background investigation that involves, talking to, relatives and former neighbors and past employers, as well as a polygraph, test. So it does take a long time. On the average, it takes at least 12 months to get through the process, maybe longer. But I think people will find that it's worth it in the long run. ATF's an outstanding agency, and I don't just say it because I work here. I worked for another federal agency before this, and they were okay. But I came over to ATF, and I've got a 23-year career here, and I love it. I really believe in what we're doing. I believe that we're making a difference, and so if people are interested in ATF, give us a call.
And with that, we could talk forever, but I want to say thank you because I know how busy all of you are in the Detroit Field Division for taking time to be with us. Again, we're talking with Acting Special Agent in Charge for the ATF Detroit Field Division, Keith Krolczyk. And again, we want to remind everyone out there, anytime you see a crime, please, if you have information, because we know about retaliation in neighborhoods as well. But it's important to be a part of the solution and to report the crimes, and you can do so. I think the email was atftips@atf.gov or 1-888 ATF Tips, 1-888 ATF Tips. Keith, great seeing you. Great talking with you. I was going to bring out my ATF swag and I forgot it.
Great seeing you too.